most of them I don't think are going to be flops, but I could see I think there is a chance that they could. There is a chance that they could. So I'm going to go for every club and say that one who I think is more so most likely to flop out of all of the signings. Not going to, but most likely to flop. Of course, let me know in the comments if I should have picked somebody else or you just completely disagree. I picked someone and you think there's like no way they're going to flop, they're going to be absolutely amazing. Do let me know in the comments below. And yeah, make sure to subscribe, help me on my road to 3,000 subscribers. Trying to hit it before the start of the Premier League season, so please hit subscribe. And yeah, let's begin. Now we're going to go in reverse order alphabetically today. Reverse, so we're going to start from the bottom and make our way up. So we're going to start with the W's, and we start with Wolves. Jørgen Strand Larsen. Okay, so we start with one which is actually one I do not believe is going to flop, and is one of those where I can see a possibility he flops, although I do think he'll do pretty well. Wolves have signed a new striker, Jørgen Strand Larsen from Celta Vigo, and he was really good last year in La Liga, grabbing 14 goals in a pretty bad side, so he seems like a good striker, pretty promising. But the main reason he is here is just because of Wolves and their track record in recent years when it comes to those big money strikers. Fabio Silva came in and flopped hard. Gonzalo Guedes came in, probably more proven in La Liga than Strand Larsen, and flopped. Sasa Kalajdzic came in and flopped, although that was due to injuries, but still. Yeah, Wolves do not really have a good record when it comes to strikers in recent years. And while he looks good, maybe this striker curse might hit Larsen and he flops. West Ham, Max Gilman. Okay, so we go on to a ex-Wolves player, and this one is actually one for me where I actually do believe he will flop. I think it has flop written all over it. Gilman, don't get me wrong, is a very solid player. He was decent for Wolves, and particularly under Lopetegui, I thought he was pretty good. Of course, he knows Julian Lopetegui very well. Lopetegui, the new West Ham manager, and may do well under him for that reason. But £40 million, for me, that's crazy. As I said, Gilman is a decent player. He's a very, very solid Premier League centre-back. But Wolves fans will tell you that he's decent, and that's really about it. Last season, he wasn't even that good for them. He was, arguably worse last season. So, to spend that much money on him is mental in my opinion. And I see him coming in, being perfectly fine, as I said, a decent player, but being nowhere near a 40 million player. Somebody who, is just pretty bang average in that West Ham squad, and they have quite a few centre-backs, and he might even, not even start that much. For £40 million, you're kind of expecting a really, really good centre-back, so I think he'll technically be considered a flop. Spurs, Archie Gray. Now I think Archie Gray has a lot of potential, and I think he will become a great player and great signing. However, he is very, very young and did cost quite a bit. He's only had really one season of professional football, and while he was great for Leeds in the Championship, he is still very raw, and I could see this season being a bit more of a developmental one, and it may be struggling a bit. He's only 18, so that is of course natural, but I could see this year maybe he plays a few games here and there, isn't quite ready, still getting used to the Premier League, and doesn't really have the impact Spurs quite hoped he would straight away in this side. Now that's perfectly fine, but I guess he would be viewed as a slight flop if he came in for 40 million and doesn't really play too much. However, overall I do really like this signing. It's just, I do think there's a chance he might struggle in his first season in the Premier League, never done it before, still very young. Southampton have made some decent signings, so it's kind of hard to pick anybody. But I guess Charlie Taylor is a bit of an odd signing, which I can see not working out. He's joined on a free transfer from Burnley, and he's always been a very solid Premier League left back, but very, very bang average. He doesn't really offer anything going forward as a fullback. Is decent defensively, but is not some like monster defensively or anything like that. He's 30 years old, and while he adds experience to his side, I can see him not really being quite Premier League level anymore. Struggled with Burnley last season as well. I'm not entirely sure he suits Russell Martin's like attacking system as well. I could definitely see him after 1 year barely playing, being past it when he plays and then leaving next season for like a championship team. Nottingham Forest, Elliot Anderson. Forest have signed Elliot Anderson from Newcastle, and while I think he's got a lot of potential, I am a little bit sceptical about whether this was the right move for both him and Forest. They spent a decent fee on him, around 35 million, and he did look pretty decent for Newcastle. He's still very young, only aged 21. However, it wasn't like he's set the world alight at Newcastle. He was good and promising, don't get me wrong, but as I said, I wouldn't say I look at him and I'm like, okay, this guy's going to be a future top-class Premier League player. And to go to Forest seems a little bit odd in my opinion. They have so many players and will probably sign a lot more, which means I'm not even sure if Anderson is a guaranteed starter. And even if he is, if he starts the season off poorly, you know, Forest are just going to go into January market and sign somebody to replace him. So it's a little bit of a weird move in my opinion for him personally, and yeah, I could see him potentially going there, struggling straight away, and then just gets dropped and thrown to the wayside. Newcastle, Odysseus Vlachodimos. Not much to choose at Newcastle, but I think Vlachodimos seems destined to be a flop. He was actually involved in that previous Elliot Anderson deal I mentioned, ironically, but I think Newcastle have come out the worst of that deal, to be honest. Vlachodimos was really, really poor for Forest last season in goal and got dropped in January for Matt Sells. Even Matt Turner was ahead of him. He was eventually third choice goalkeeper there for Forest. So Newcastle signing him for me makes no sense. As if Nick Pope gets an injury, which I mean we saw last season, he is a little bit susceptible to an injury, and Vlachodimos has to play. Honestly, he doesn't fill me with any confidence, and I could see him dropping some absolute clangers for Newcastle and costing them considerable amount of points next season and being viewed as a major, major flop. Manchester United, Joshua Zirkzee. United have made some nice signings, but if I had to pick somebody who I could see potentially struggling, it would be Zirkzee. He's been signed for 40 million as backup to Fulham, which I think is good, as they definitely needed a backup. But usually, if you sign a striker to be a backup, it doesn't really work out. The problem with this transfer is I can actually see Fulham having a really good year. After a solid first season, he could build upon that and start to become a really, really good number 9 for United. If that happens, well, I mean that means Zirkzee will basically not get to start many games at United. He'll only play when Hoyland's form drops off, or if he gets an injury. So there's a very real scenario here where Zirkzee plays like 10 games this season because Hoyland is just, you know, on fire, and for 40 million to play that little games, yeah, that's a flop. I think Zirkzee will be fine, he'll probably play more than that, but as I said, I think there is a chance that potentially he doesn't play too much. Manchester City, NA. Yeah, Man City have made one signing, Savio, who I really, really like, so I can't hate on that, so nobody choose at City. Liverpool, NA as well. I mean, yeah, of course, Liverpool have made one signing as of recording, so they're pretty much exempt from this video. Next one, Leicester. Don't worry, I actually do have a player this time. Bobby Reed. Okay, this might seem a bit weird calling a free transfer a flop, and I actually do think Bobby Reed will be fine for Leicester, but if I had to pick, it's probably him who would flop. He was a solid player for Fulham and has proven, he's a capable Premier League player. However, that's pretty much all he is. He has a very low ceiling. He's just a very mid-Prem player, and he's getting on a bit now. He's aged 31. I'm not sure if he actually plays regularly for Leicester this season. I could see him struggling a bit, maybe not playing too much, starting to decline, and he's also signed a 3-year deal, which is crazy to me at his age 31. If this doesn't work out, Leicester will be tied to someone in their 30s on the decline, who I'm assuming is on a decent wage, who they're probably not going to be able to ship, so yeah, potentially I could see him just coming in and maybe showing his age a little bit and starting to decline and being a signing Leicester rather, which they didn't make. Ipswich, Liam Delap. It's hard to really call any of Ipswich signings flops because, well, most of their signings don't really have much expectation on them to perform. In fact, most of the Ipswich squad has no expectation on them. However, Liam Delap has come for a pretty sizable fee for Ipswich, around £15 million, and he's going to be the guy they're going to pin their hopes on to score the goals to keep them up. I'm not really sure he is ready for that. While Delap is young and definitely has potential, he's barely proven himself in the Championship, let alone the Prem. In 22-23 he got just 4 goals all season in the Championship, and then last year got a respectable 8 goals for a whole, but that's by no means impressive. He's done okay in the Championship. He's a solid Championship striker right now, but I'm unconvinced that he's really ready for the Premier League. I think he could struggle playing Premier League football this season, as he seems just not quite ready for it. Fulham, Emil Smith-Rowe. Smith-Rowe is a statement signing from Fulham, and a lot of Premier League clubs probably would have took him, but Fulham have slapped the money down and paid for him. And I think he's actually their record signing now. While I think he is a good player, it is a big risk, and I think there's a decent chance he does flop. Smith-Rowe is a bit of a weird player, because I don't really know what his best position is. He's been tried at Arsenal on the left wing, attacking mid, number 8, and he's been okay in all of them, but not really great in any of those. That's why, for me, it is a big risk for Fulham, because they need to find out where his best position is. And while Smith-Rowe is talented, he's not really played much football in the last 2 years. Just 13 and 12 appearances in the last 2 seasons. He's had some injuries as well, so it's a big risk and it's a big fee as well. There is definitely a chance this may not work out. I do think he will end up working out, but it is a little bit of a gamble from Fulham to sign Smith-Rowe. Everton, Iliman Ndiaye. Iliman Ndiaye was fantastic for Sheffield United. Their fans will tell you that him leaving at the start of their season last year was actually one of the biggest reasons they went down, as he was so crucial to Sheffield. However, he was great for them in the Championship, not the Premier League. He left to play for Marseille in Ligue 1, a massive step up from the Championship, and he did quite poor, grabbing just 3 goals and 3 assists in 30 games. If we're being harsh, then what we can say is he's had one great year in the Championship, but that's really been it for his career so far. When he made that step up to a top 5 league, he struggled. So maybe his level is the Championship. I don't know. I do think he's a good player, but as I said, if I'm being harsh, you can view it like that and say he's gonna struggle at Everton because he's not really up to Premier League level. Palace, and I actually do think Kamada will be a good signing, but again, if I had to pick a player, I do see a world where Kamada does flop at Palace. Of course, he played under Glasner at Frankfurt and did very well, but we can't just forget the fact he had an awful time at Lazio last season. He got just 2 goals and 3 assists and was not given a contract extension. Admittedly, he did play a very different role to what he'd played under Glasner, but still, he's just come off the back of a really, really bad year. His first experience outside of the Bundesliga. Coming to play in England, a different league for the first time. He's going to be on high wages. I don't think it's a crazy shout to say, he can't rediscover that form again under Glasner and will end up flopping, eating up that wage bill at Palace. As I said, I do think he will be a good player. I think he'll be fine. But I do see a world where he potentially does flop. Chelsea. Kieran Dewsbury-Hall. When Chelsea signed Dewsbury-Hall, it did seem a bit of a weird transfer. Of course, he worked under Maresca last season and was very good, but he was linked to Brighton heavily, and that seemed like the more sensible step up. He was very good in the Championship last season, but I don't think anybody looked at him and thought, yeah, you're ready to play for a big 6 team. So, it's kind of an odd signing, and while I think he's a good player, I'm not really sure right now if he's quite good enough to be a starter and a game changer for us. The worrying thing is, I'm not sure if he actually starts for us. With Chukwuemeka and Kungu, Lavia, Enzo, Caicedo, Gallagher, all in that midfield, it's hard to see where he plays, and I can't guarantee that he's going to actually play many minutes this season. So I could see a world where he doesn't play too much, he's just a squad player for us, and for 30 million, a squad player, yeah, I think that's got to come down as a flop. But I do hope I'm wrong. Brighton, NA. As usual, Brighton seem to have done smart and effective business, signing young, promising players from across the globe, and I don't really have problems with any of them, so yeah, let's move on. Brentford, Igor Thiago. This is one where I can really, really see him flopping, to be honest. Since coming up to the Prem, when Brentford have spent a decent fee on a player, it really hasn't worked out. Damsgaard, Keane Lewis, Potter, Hickey, Collins, and others have all come for pretty big fees for Brentford's budget, and haven't really lived up to their price tags yet. Thiago is the biggest of them all, their record signing. Up front, well, it's already started off pretty bad as he's picked up an injury, ruling him out for the start of the season. On top of that, he's quite a poacher. He doesn't really do much except win headers and score tap-ins from the box. His underlying numbers are not really encouraging, and for me, I don't like this move. I think he might be a bit of a nuisance for defences due to his size, but apart from being a target man, he really doesn't offer you much, and I think it's going to be a big drop-off from Ivan Toney if he leaves, and another waste of money from Brentford. Bournemouth, NA. Yeah, right now, no issues with any of Bournemouth's signings. Sinistera, Unal on permanents are great, as they did very well on loan last season. Hudson and Paulson, good, promising guys. So yeah, very good business from Bournemouth so far. Aston Villa, Ian Martson. Ian Martson is a good player. He showed at Dortmund last season on loan just how good he was, playing a key role for them getting to the Champions League final, although he did make a mistake in the final. He's a good player, it's just he's still relatively unproven at this level. That half season at Dortmund was the first time he regularly played in a top 5 league in his entire career, and he did well, but how's he going to do in the Premier League? Given his small height for a fullback in a much more physical league, that could be a bit of a concern. And I also do fear defensively for him. I think going forward he's good, but defensively I have concerns about him as a orthodox left back coming like Salah or Saka in the Prem. I'm not sure how he does. As I said, I know he's played in the Champions League, but I'm really not sure about this, and I'm also unsure if he's even going to start. They have three left backs in Digne and Moreno, who are both much more experienced and established in Matt Emery's system. So I'm not sure about this move, to be honest. I could see maybe Martin starting, struggling a little bit to adapt, and then just gets dropped for one of Moreno or Digne, and then just forget about him. But I hope I'm wrong about this, because I really like Martin as a player. Okay, and finally Arsenal. Ricardo Cagliari. Right, well, this is hard because he's the only signing Arsenal have made, so kind of by default I have to go for him. Now Cagliari is a great player, really good dribbler, good ball playing defender, only 22. We all saw at the Euros just how good he looked. However, this could very easily turn into a Euro Timber deal. In my opinion, it does give me those vibes. His injury record is quite concerning. Last season, to be fair, he did manage to stay fit for most of the season, but that's basically the only time in his career he's been injury-free in a season. In 22-23, he got 4 separate injuries, missing 16 games. The season before, another 4 injuries, missed 20 games. The year before that, 4 more injuries, he missed 33 games. And a year before that, in 18-19, he was out for almost a whole year. That's quite concerning, especially when you look at those injuries and what they are. As in 2020-21 season, he got a reoccurring hamstring injury 3 separate times that season. Maybe that's going to flare up again. Look, I think he is a great player, and I think if he's fit and available, he'll be perfectly fine. But I am just fearful it might end up like a Timber from last year, where he gets injured for large portions of the season and you don't actually get to see him much this year, and for that reason he might be brandished as a flop. But as I said, if he's on the pitch, I think he's going to be perfectly fine. So there we go. That is every Premier League club's most likely to flop player this season. Let me know if you agree or disagree with those picks in the comments below. If you have enjoyed this